So I was asked to sign for Celtic boys, and it was an amazing thing because it was right in the heart of troubles, obviously. And I was only 14 at the time, but it had a massive impact on my life, so it did. And I believe it kept me away from all the paramilitary and the hatred. And obviously, we all, at times, when you watch the news and all, you get a wee bit of bitterness in you. But I was glad and so proud that I played for Celtic boys, so I was at that stage. So I did. So I played for Celtic boys till I was 16, went to Carrick. I was always a keen footballer, so I was. So I went to Carrick and I played for Carrick first team when I was 17. So I did. So things were going really well as a young footballer. So I had trials for Bristol Rovers and then Reading. I was doing really well. As I say, you're probably listening to me now and saying he was some player. I wasn't a great player, but I could stop a good player. That was my game, stopping a good player. So it was. So as I say, I was always a keen footballer throughout my life, and I'm still involved to this day with football. But it was in the year 2000, my first son was born, Kyle. But all the way through this, from I got to the age of, I would say 20, I started drinking and taking drugs, as Thomas touched on there, Charlie Haggerty's. So we did, we're running about parties and different things every week. In 2003, my second son was born, Cain. And in that year as well, which was another massive impact on my life, I started working in Mercedes, so I did. And I started working with Warrington Lap, which was a real blessing. And I still have conversations every single morning with Warren about God. But then I didn't know what it was about. God always had his eye on me, always had a plan for me. Even when I think back to my childhood, it was always, when we were younger growing up, we were always taught to go to Sunday school. And it planted something in there which I'm thankful for. And then when I started working with Warren, I was listening to God all the time. All the time, even though I was still going out drinking, taking drugs, still doing the things that I was doing, God still was in the picture with me, so he was still keeping me interested, so he was. And my granny was always a Christian, so even going to her house and seeing the Bible sitting, God was always keeping me involved. He always had his eye on me, so he did. And I believe, and looking back now, because God opens your eyes to things, and I'm so glad that he did. So in 2004, after working with Warren the first year, I remember going to the cinema to watch The Passion of Christ with Warren's church. And as I say, it's the first encounter I really felt God. I really felt the presence of God. So I did. And I remember we went to the Park Avenue after, and Jack would know him, and probably a lot of football men here would know him. Roy Walker was speaking. But he really hit me, like so he did, because he's saying, if you're not saved, you're going to hell. Obviously, the truth. So I said to Warren, I'm away here. Done a pulled her. Back to my old ways. Back to drinking, taking drugs. Every weekend, I could say nearly, throughout my childhood, throughout my life, I was probably drinking and taking drugs, so I was. So in 2006, I'll never forget it, I come back from training. It was a Tuesday night, and I was in the bath, and the phone went down, answered the phone. It was my daddy. My mommy and daddy at that time was drinking heavy. And my daddy says, you may get to the house, your mommy's not good. I says, there's them too drunk again. So I remember flying to the house, and I remember the heart ambulance was there, and I remember the other heart ambulance came, and my mommy passed away. It was just one of them things that just sticks in you, and it killed me. So it did. Everybody grieves different, as we all know, but I used to get into the car and go a drive and do my thing, cry, and not in front of people, because I was a proud person, so I was. And as I say, it was about a year after, so I was still, the hurt and the pain was hitting me. So now, I know obviously I'm saved now, but then I didn't realise I got a medium out of the house. It's obviously is a familiar spirit, demon. So the woman was telling me things that only I could have knew. So now I know it was a familiar spirit. So I always say up my testimony, because I like to warn people, stay away from mediums. the Bible tells us, don't do it. That's why I always say it in my testimony. So I do. So around 2012, I fell out with my oldest two kids' mother. So I did. And met my wife-to-be. So I did shortly after. So later on that year, my kids didn't want to see me no more. Could I blame them? No, I couldn't blame them. Because I was out every weekend, taking drugs, drinking. Anytime they wanted to do something with me, I had no interest. So I had no interest in the kids. I didn't deserve to see my kids at that time. There's no doubt about it. I don't blame my kids for not wanting to see me at that time, but as I say, it did hurt me, obviously. But the old worldly saying is, which we always get caught up in, they'll come back when they're ready. But that's not the attitude. That's not the attitude to have. Obviously, now that my eyes are open to see, I knew I was wrong. But that was my attitude then. So for 3 years, my kids didn't want to see me. And I couldn't blame them, to be honest. So I couldn't. So when I got married, so I did. It didn't last too long, mind you. But in 2015, I went through a marriage breakup. But at that time, in January, my wife was pregnant. So she was. So I was at a crossroads in my life. I was thinking to myself, is this the person I want to be? Is this life? What sort of daddy am I? My other two didn't want to see me, and then I had one on the way, which I was finished with her mother, and I was just thinking to myself, what sort of person are you like? But it didn't stop me. I still continued drinking, taking drugs. I was away on holiday with the boys, and I can't remember where it was, March that year, and then I went till Newcastle. But I remember even then, I was starting to think about God. So it was because, as I say, I was at a crossroads in my life, and I knew I couldn't keep living like that. So I couldn't, because I knew my kids didn't deserve it, and I didn't want to live like that no more. So I didn't. So I remember I was training in the Grove Leisure Centre with Davy Brown. I didn't know at the time he was a Christian, because obviously if you're training with someone, you're just training and going. So I never really got talking to him about church, but then someone told me that he was saved. So I started getting interested in talking to him about church, so I did. So in May 2015, I started going to church, so I did. I started going to Whitewell. Sorry, Jack. The only reason I went to Whitewell is because I wanted away from all the hustle and bustle and people saying, Tilly, come on, get saved now. I didn't want any pressure. I wanted to do what was right. I wanted to make it right, because I'm one of them people that when I'm in something, I want to be 100%. So I wanted to do it right. So I did. So I started going to Whitewell for about a month or so, and then I started coming here, like Sunday mornings, and Whitewell Sunday nights. So I did. And I remember, I'll never forget it, June 2015, the 14th it was. I remember I was in a club, and I remember walking towards the dance floor, and I just remember that still voice that we all know, and we hear people talking about, saying, "What are you doing?" And at that time, I never knew what it was, and I remember just carrying on. That was the early hours of the 14th of June, 2015. I remember just carrying on, doing what I had to do. Get up the next day anyway, or not the next day, that day, because it was out all night. And I didn't know then, but it just stopped drinking and taking drugs, just like that. Boom. It was God just stopped me. God just stopped me in my tracks. As I say, that still voice, I know now it was from God saying to me, "What are you doing? What are you doing with your life?" And I knew then my kids deserved better, and I knew that I deserved better, and I wanted to be better. And I knew that was my purpose in life. So it wasn't. So I continued to go to church. And on a Wednesday night, the 8th of July 2015, I gave my heart to the Lord, so I did. Which was the best decision I've ever done in my life. And the scripture, which you always share with people, I love it. The scripture just touches everyone. It's John 10:10. The thief, which is the devil, comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But I have come to give you life and life more abundantly. So he came to kill, obviously, my soul. Came to steal my family. But now, the life abundantly, my goodness. You couldn't even describe it. It's hard to describe, but remember listening to a song. It's in that order, but it doesn't matter. But I remember the night I got saved, a guy came over to me in the coffee shop in Whitewell, and he said to me, "You'll have your kids back in 6 months." But I was, that's me, why 6 months? Why not now? I'm sure you're all probably thinking that too now. But I knew that was God speaking. No, I know now that was God speaking to me as well, because within 6 months, I had to, stay you down there, get the seatbelt on. So as I say, within 6 months, I had the kids back. Which, when I think back now, why I didn't have my kids back, obviously in Ezekiel it tells you why, because I needed a new heart. I had a heart of stone, and I needed a heart of flesh. That's why I didn't have my kids back. I wasn't ready for them, so I wasn't. And Jack always touches about the refereeing. So he does. The refereeing, I've done loads of finals and all, but the main thing for me when I were refereeing is witnessing to people. I've witnessed and getting witnessing to loads of people in football. I would swap all my medals to get witnessing to people, so I would, for all the finals I've done, that don't mean nothing to me. Witnessing to people is more important to me now than medals or any matches or anything I could do. I mean, I turn up the matches now and I would rather just communicate with people and referee the match, to be honest with you, because God's more important to me now than football. So he is. But when I think back, before I was saved, I had a real fear of dying, so I did. I remember coming back after parties and all, and the heart and all going a dinger. Obviously, you're on drugs, and I remember thinking, I'm going to die here. But why did I have a fear of dying? Because my soul was on ease. That's why I had a fear of dying. So I did. But as I say, tomorrow's promised to none of us. That's why I had a fear of dying, because tomorrow's promised to none of us. And obviously the scripture tells us it's appointed unto a man to die once, and then comes judgment. So I wasn't ready for that judgment. So I'm just so thankful. I remember being in a party one night in Wakefield, and I shared with Geezer last week, so I did. And I remember sitting there off my head, and I remember the guy fired a shot, and it just hit above my head, and it didn't even fizz on me. But see now, when God brings it to your remembrance, when you think back, that was me getting another chance. So it was. But then people always say, you near died here, every day I get up and I thank him, because every day we get another opportunity, so we do. And then the old worldly saying that I used to use was, why would a loving God condemn me to hell? I'm sure a whole lot of you ask it. But the question you should be asking yourself is, why would you turn your back on a loving God and condemn yourself to hell? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about God, so it is. And I'm so thankful that I have a testimony. As I say, I'm just going to read this wee bit of scripture here. It's Revelation. The brothers and sisters will know it so they will. Revelation 12:11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. I'm so thankful that I have a testimony now. And as I say, with the two brothers here, Thomas and Tommy, we've been all around the place, all around the country, giving God all the honour and glory that he truly deserves. As I say, I'm so thankful to God for everything that I have. And as I say, 2015 was a great year as well, because my third son was born, Harry. And as I say, I missed the opportunity with my first two, bring them to Sunday school because of the way I was. Obviously, I pray for them all the time. But Harry's been in here from he's weeks old, and I have a great opportunity with Harry, and I'm certainly not going to miss it. So I'm not. But as I say, God's been working wonders in my life also, because as I shared earlier on, my daddy was a heavy drinker. But the last 9 months, my daddy's been going to church, and I'm just so thankful. And I never mention nothing to him about God, because I don't need to. Because us believers, obviously unbelievers, we're the only Bible that they read. So they are. So I thank you for listening to me. God bless you all.